One of the suspects accused of being connected to the disappearance of Jennifer Dulos is scheduled to appear in court today.
Fox 61's Lauren Zinzi is live for us in Stamford. She has the latest on what's to come for Mawhinney. Lauren?
Tim and Erica, Kent Mawhinney is due in court today as it relates to his charges against him when it comes to the disappearance of Jennifer Dulos. As you may recall, Jennifer Dulos went missing 2 years ago in May of 2019 after dropping her children off at school. Her husband, Fotis Dulos, and his girlfriend, Michelle Troconis, were both arrested and charged in her disappearance. Fotis Dulos died by suicide back in January of last year. Jennifer Dulos is presumed to be dead. Troconis and Mawhinney are both facing charges related to Jennifer's disappearance. Mawhinney is facing a felony charge of conspiracy to commit murder. Back in January, Michelle Troconis' attorney, John Schoenhorn, filed what's called a motion to compel, accusing the state of withholding evidence he says is important to the Troconis defense. Her attorney claimed that promises were made during Mawhinney's interrogation with state police back in August of 2020 in exchange for his cooperation. Schoenhorn claimed that the state then reduced Mawhinney's bond. Back in December of last year, state police revisited Mountain Spring Road in Farmington to investigate, where they followed up on old leads. According to police, Fotis Dulos' phone pinged twice near that home the day of Jennifer's disappearance. And Kent Mawhinney is due back in court this morning around 9:30. So, of course, we'll keep you up to date with the latest information as it becomes available. We're live in Stamford this morning. Lauren Zinzi, Fox 61 News.